Every time you create a job, you must assign it to a pipeline, and that pipeline dictates the stages that the job needs to go through before it's considered complete. Now, when we first set these pipelines up for you, we'll have some default stages. So for example, I'm looking at my asbestos surveys at the moment in the dashboard, and you can see there are 5 stages: site work, lab results, floor plans, QC, which means quality control, and then issued. However, your process might be different to this. For example, when you get to site, you might always do a risk assessment before you actually start the work. So your first stage should really be risk assessment. Also, you might want to include invoiced as a stage. This could be either before you've issued the report, in which case it would appear just here between the QC and issued stages, or you might issue the report and then invoice, in which case it would be right here at the end. So in these cases where your particular process doesn't necessarily match the ones that have been set up for you, you want to get in touch with our support team and we can customize your pipelines. Now, ideally, this should be done just once when you first start using the product, although we can change the pipeline stages later on as well. It is just generally better to try and do it in the beginning so that there's not a kind of mix of different stages on old and new jobs. But it's not the end of the world if you do change this later. Now, when we update your pipeline to include a new stage, you can mark off the status as either work in progress, snag if there's a problem with that particular stage, or complete. I'll show you exactly what I mean. I'm going to go into this one here, and you can see we have the option to change this site work stage to any one of these 4 statuses listed below. If we add a new stage for you, then you can mark off the progress in this way. There's another advantage too. If I go back up to the jobs list, now currently this is showing all of the jobs for asbestos surveys. But what if we want to sort of see where jobs are actually up to? For example, we want to see the jobs that are awaiting site work. To do that, we can use the second drop down and say awaiting site work. In other words, that first stage isn't complete. And likewise, if I move to the next filter option below, awaiting lab results, the first stage has been complete and the stage that I'm interested in, lab results, isn't complete. So when we customize your pipelines to include these extra stages, if that's what you want, then you have the ability to see which jobs are up to that stage, as well as also being able to mark that stage off individually. Now, I would recommend having probably no more than, say, 10 stages, just because it gets a bit cluttered. To be honest, 10's probably too many, I would say. But, try not to go too wild with these. Just try to choose stages which actually reflect your current process in some sort of broad way. That's why we have words like site work and QC, rather than being really specific about the thing you're doing. That just broadly encompasses that stage. So to customize your pipeline, please get in touch with our support team and we'd be happy to guide you through the process.